Why, hello there, Exile. Today I want to share with you a character that we put together in the Zero to Hero series. In this project, I started with a fresh character using none of my currency, waystones, or tablets. I streamed the entire time playing this character, buying items, all that stuff, and I took it all the way to tier 15 to tier 17 maps, and the goal was to earn about 10 divines. We ended up earning around 9 divines total and still have 7.5 left over. We didn't invest the remaining currency yet, so what you're seeing here is the setup that we used for tier 15 to tier 17 mapping. And in fact, most of the currency was made on the last 2 days after we got into tier 15 maps and really set up the Atlas. So make sure that you're filling in all the points for your Atlas, and you really want to invest in good tablets or roll all your tablets and set them up with quantity so that you're dropping way more loot. The goals of this character were to make it simple and easy to follow. Also use items that are easily obtainable for new players. Due to these goals, we are avoiding complex topics like weapon swapping and trying to keep the buttons down to a minimum. We also didn't go for chaos inoculation because when you choose that, you get frozen and stunned unless you solve those problems with gear. That was too complex for this project. Speaking of freeze, this build is built around freezing for its primary defense. We have 5.2 second base freezes. Hold up. We just dropped the divine. Does this count for the challenge? I think it counts. I mean, so we, I guess, earn the 10 divine goal? Huh. I don't know. I guess let me know in the comment section. Does this divine count or not? Anyways, where were we? Oh yeah, we have 6.5 freezes on bosses because of temp chains. In order to freeze, there are two main components, cold damage and freeze buildup. We invested heavily into freeze buildup so that if we sneeze on an enemy, they will be frozen. We chose Spark because you don't have to aim and it scales with both projectile speed and increased duration. Our current setup hits enemies 1.5 screens away and also freezes them. This means any hard monster that doesn't have proximity, we can just off screen with no risk of dying. We can also get +1 chain from the tree and 3 from Mana Tempest. Let's take a look at this tier 15 boss. The first thing you want to do is precast. Right now our sparks last 3.7 seconds, so while he takes forever to do his animations, we get to preload our damage. Then we cast temp chains and enfeeble. Now he's frozen for 6.5 seconds. Okay, he was dead before I could even finish the explanation. I'll have to show you in a second in the hideout. Okay, what I was trying to say before I was rudely interrupted by the boss dying too quickly is we are pre-casting Spark like this while they're doing the animation. And we have this Mana Tempest. Now this thing, while you're casting it, is gonna drain your mana quicker and quicker and quicker. Look how quickly that goes down. But to get the effect with the quality, you get to stay in it and keep it for 1 second when you go out. Let me just show you what that means. Right here. So it says, effects of Mana Tempest linger for 1 second after leaving the Tempest. So we could put it down and then walk out of it and we still have it for 1 second. So we're gonna cast Spark, put it down, leave it, wait for it to go off, put it down, leave it, and that's kind of playstyle. Now you're noticing my mana's going down. So for the mapping, we need to balance that. And to balance that, what we're going to do, I forgot how to navigate all this stuff because I played Diablo 4 for the last couple days, and I don't know the point of that game because it's kind of really easy and they just give you infinite loot, and I don't even know what the point of the game is anymore. But I digress. All right, we have mana gain on kill. Now getting 2% mana gain on kill is like a divine. It's really hard to get these unless you snipe them with a loot filter. So we're just getting 2 of these. We ideally later want multiple of these. So when we kill a pack, our mana is going to go back up to help us balance with it. Oops. All right. We have Orb of Storms here. We have to be in the orb for it to shoot other things with it. Right now, the radius isn't big enough to justify that. We need it to be bigger because I ain't going near the boss with the setup, okay? We're going to play over here. When the boss is all the way over here, we're just going to off-screen him mostly. And then we're going to constantly move while we're doing stuff. And then since they aim at where you were usually, as long as you're constantly moving like this, you're probably just going to avoid most of the hits. So do this a bunch, roll, do this a bunch, roll, kind of ignore what the boss is doing, and it'll probably work out for you. So temp chains we put down, and we put this down. They have a little bit of a delay, a longer delay because we have increased duration. And that's all there is to it. So really it's like 2 main buttons for the clear. We don't worry about any of this or the Orb of Storms during the clear. It's just casting a bunch of this and then Mana Storm for hard enemies. And then we just do this. That's it. That's all there is to it, playing it. Okay. All right, let's look at our skills. We have Spark. Now we really want quality on this thing because it adds projectiles. See, 4 extra projectiles, 21 total. So 1 Spark's going to do that. See, it's lasting 3.7 seconds. Cast speed, more projectile speed. Consider it casting. Less cast time. We want less cast time because we're already draining our mana too quickly. And then inspiration. I added in inspiration once I added in Archmage because otherwise we're going to have mana problems, which you already see that we kind of are having sustained mana problems here. It is kind of going down, but you just wait a half second and it goes back up. So just if you take a big hit, since we have mind over matter, it means that our mana protects our life. So you take the big hit, it goes into your mana, and then you just stop casting for a second, or maybe cast a couple times, kind of kite it out. Wait for your mana to go back up, rinse, repeat. Make sure you're not standing in mana tempest like this, draining your whole mana and then going into a rare, because all you're going to have is a little bit of life and then you're going to die. So make sure you're paying attention to your mana a little bit. Flame Wall, we're not even using this anymore. You could use this if you want. We were using this for a while. It's up to you. The nice thing about it during the leveling, you put it in, you do sparks, and then they get a little bit of extra damage. So it's pretty significant. I mean, you can put that down if you want and do that. Up to you. Not needed at this point in time because our damage, once you get to certain damage thresholds, you could play lazy, okay? Once you get to certain health thresholds, you get to play lazy. So we want this lazy, cozy build where we're perma-freezing stuff so we could be lazy. You know, I work full time. I stream from time to time for fun. I put this content out for fun. And I don't want to go in and do some intense stuff at the end of my day. I'm usually pretty exhausted. So I just, you know, minimal buttons, freeze them, whatever, do that stuff. Okay, Orb of Storms, we have more area of effect. Now I have Font of Mana with Font of Blood in this, so we can, even if we're not hitting them, just actually put this on and help us regen mana and life. Because given 2% life regen. Then we have Cast on Shock. I don't have the spirit to use this. I was using Ball Lightning. I was going to use Overcharge, but don't have enough spirit. Don't need it. I might experiment with something like this later. This, or maybe comment with freeze duration, because that would push our freeze all the way up to like 7 seconds, 7.5 seconds base, or 7.7 seconds base, and 10 seconds with temp chains. So we might do that, like a comment with freeze build up, freeze duration to make sure it's getting the freeze. Temp chains with increased effect. We didn't pick up any effect yet on the tree, but we can do that. This has, not only does it slow them, now it's worth noting on the bosses, there's text here, slows are 50% less effective on unique monsters, but it doesn't say curses. So this effect expires 25% slower, doesn't get reduced by unique bosses. I don't know why they didn't do that way. I think that's an oversight. And we're going to abuse that by stacking curse effects so we can get longer freezes on it. You can, of course, quality this to get increased effective as well. Very powerful. Of course, Mana Tempest, and we just gave it 1 level. By the way, this is really, really strong. You get 94% of damage as lightning damage. Really good. Enfeeble, this is because we have almost no mitigate. Why is it? What's going on here? Well, what was that? You see it like glitching out? I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. It's glitching out. Anyways. What? Okay, it's still glitching out. Unique monsters deal less damage and other things. Okay, so it was just so that we're not getting one shot, hopefully. Then we have Archmage, of course. It's Cookie Cutter. This is super busted in its current state. Way too strong. They need to like nerf it by 4x or something stupid. At 3k mana, which remember, this is a budget build guide where we have like 120 rarity and we invested and bought expensive stuff to get rarity. So we're dropping divines and stuff. And we're able to get the 3k mana pretty easily. And so that gives 8 times 30. So 240 damage is extra lightning. Absolutely stupid. Now, because I did have a little bit of spirit for my amulet, I went with clarity and vitality. Not really necessary, but nice to have, I suppose. I probably want more spirit so that I can add a cast on shock setup like I was talking about earlier. I do quickly want to show you this, okay? Look at our damage, 12,000. Now look at our damage, 31,000. It almost 3x's our damage, okay? And our mana isn't even high. Like what is this balance? Yeah, it needs to be like 1/4 or something. This is way out of tune with anything at all. Every build needs it, and it's ruining the balance of the game, quite frankly. So abuse it while you can. If they ever do nerf this, then we'll just do a bunch of cast setups or something with our spirit to compensate for them nerfing it into the ground. Mana Tempest also, look at this, okay? No Mana Tempest, and it's turned off, 12k. We're in Mana Tempest, 19k. So the combination of those two is just really nutty, right? We go all the way up to 38k from 9k. Just silly, right? That's like 4x damage. So that's kind of where the damage comes from. One thing that I really need to talk about is the freeze. So how are we freezing? We're using these gloves, which they recently buffed, and it's basically converting our base damage into cold, fire, and lightning, and then we get extra cold, fire, and lightning. So it actually is like a 30% more multiplier, but it's additive with the Orb of Storms and the Archmage, so it's not as good as 30% until later. And then I do have a little bit of extra cold on our wand here, but just these two things are enough to get the minimal freeze hit that we can then scale with freeze duration. I guess now's a good time to just look at the rest of the gear since I'm doing this. So this, we're prioritizing basically rarity here. Crit hit chance was a nice to have, but you really want just 2 resist probably, life and mana. We grab some life and mana because this gives us 5k effective health. We're not really using block or anything like that. We have like no defensives, no armor, no energy, no evasion. See, 0/0. So we're just relying on freeze. Now, having life is nice because it increases your stun and freeze threshold so that it's harder to stun you. That's why you want life. If you do go CI, then you need to pick up things around it. So what is CI? This is this chaos inoculation. It makes you immune to chaos, but it makes it so that your life is 1. And since your life is 1, then it means that your stun and freeze threshold is 1. So if they sneeze on you, you will freeze them. So you kind of need to run energy shield then, and then you need to pick up nodes for maximum energy shield as additional stun. And then there's this nice node over here, that maximum energy shield as additional freeze threshold. That, or you have to solve this some other way. So that's why we're not going with that, especially in a budget setup. So we went with, for this, just we wanted some mana and some spirit, but we kind of didn't need the spirit because we didn't get enough of it. We kind of need 60 spirit to do anything cool with. They went with +2 all spell skills, and that's because +3 is way too much more expensive, okay? We had a budget to stick to. And then we anointed mental toughness so that when we're not on low mana, we get reduced mana cost. On our wand, we went with +4 lightning skills. Cast speed would be really good, but we didn't go with that because that's too expensive. Higher spell damage would be good in mana, but we didn't go with that because that's too expensive. So these are like budget buys. what I tried to do, and you can watch the video where we bought all the gear and I explained, we like looked around with the prices of the ideal stuff, and then we reduced it down to what was cheap for the purpose of this build. So this is by all means like not even close to a really good wand. It's a cheap wand that's good enough. Same with this offhand. Ideally, you'd want like energy shield, because we have this node that takes all of our energy shield and converts it to mana. And we already saw how good mana is with Archmage. But we only have 72 energy shield on this and 37 mana, and then +2 spell skills. This could go up to +3. We didn't get that. Cold spell damage, cold damage could be higher. Didn't need that. So these are all like budget items. Remember that. Our main goal was to get as close to 150 rarity as possible, ideally over 100. So also that's what we did on the rings. We went with a little bit of life, a little bit of mana, some rarity, cast speed, and mana regen, and very little resist on these. And then this is the other thing that has our rarity, which is our boots. Now we cut some movement speed out, which means we're going to clear away slower, but once again, budget item. We were trying to get capped on res. So getting capped on res, one of the most important things, then getting mana pool decent with some life. So you have a high life mana combined pool, very important. Here's mind over matter, which makes us take mana damage before life. But it gives us less mana recovery, so then you're going to drain your mana quicker. Also, by the way, Archmage makes it so that everything costs way, way more. So when you better have a decent amount of mana and mana regen before you try taking that, or you're going to have problems with mana. Okay, let's look at our belt. So we went with mana, try res. We went with lower res. By the way, check out the shopping stream once again for all these little things that we did, and you can hear my full thought process with this. Most people are focused on high energy shield, so we're like, we'll get life with energy shield, and then we'll still kind of get the same amount of effective health, but for cheaper, because no one wants a chest like this, quite frankly. So I think there's like 5 exalts or something stupid, okay, for our chest. So you can definitely figure out what other people are trying to get, and then you can think, okay, what can I make slightly different to get a cheaper option? That's what this whole project was about, really. Like showing you, you don't need to go for the super overpriced items from your favorite streamer. There's other options that you could do. You just don't know about them. That was the whole purpose of doing this whole project. All right, let's kind of talk about the tree now. We did 3 Ascendancies so far, so we got 2 shocks, which is really strong. As we invest in magnitude of shock, our damage is going to go through the roof because we have 2 shocks. So basically the way shock works is you get 20% base, and then it gets multiplied when you shock by all your magnitude. So you can actually get up to, I think people said 90% per shock. Increase damage taken. That's like a more multiplier for the boss. Then we went with, we always have Arcane Surge, and this is really nice. It increases our Arcane Surge effect per mana. What Arcane Surge does, it gives us more cast speed and more mana regeneration rate. So it helps compensate with the Archmage downside of using mana quicker by giving us more mana regen, basically. Okay. So tree's kind of weird. Main important components, we grab this for 30 freeze buildup. Freeze buildup here. Freeze buildup here. Freeze duration. Generic all ailment duration. So this node plus this node gives us 5.2 second freezes. This is skill effect duration. It makes our spark last longer. Skill effect duration makes our spark last longer. This is projectile speed for skills. And then on some jewels, we basically went with projectile speed on some jewels. This is the mana on kill, because we wanted like 2 of those. Projectile speed. This is mana on kill. This is life gained on kill, so that whenever we're killing, we're just topping off our life as well. So a little bit of both of those. I have a jewel socket here. We ran out of time with what we were doing, so I didn't even fill that in. By the way, we're level 88 in this setup. These are all good nodes, and we're probably going to buy a unique jewel and slap it in here to give us a ton of utility since we picked up so many nodes in range. This is for max of mana. So we spent 3 points here. This is mana regen because we were running out of mana and we kind of played with it. This is also freeze buildup. This node is really, really strong right here because hits ignore non-negative elemental resist of frozen enemies. Since we freeze them really quickly, the second we freeze them, all the resists are gone. Now this is extremely powerful because there's actually a 2-point node on the Monk Invoker that makes it so melee crits ignore elemental resist. And a lot of people are grabbing that. But you can actually get that for this, and you don't need that on any class with this freeze buildup. This is for our double curse, but kind of not needed. We definitely could pick up these nodes here for more curse effect, making everything last longer and then do less damage. What else do we need to talk about? Oh, geez. I don't even know. I think we mostly went over. Oh, I know. What will we do next, I guess, is a good topic, okay? We would add exposure to the build. We would probably put on our skills Orb of Storms, and we can make it so when it shocks, it does inflicts exposure. And then we take Enfeeble, we replace this with minus resist. And the reason why we want to do that is because we can actually push enemies into negative resist. So we would invest in these two nodes here. So they lower by an additional 20. And then we can invest in some nodes here, get 50% effect of exposure. And then there's also a support gem, which increases it by 30%. So we can make our Orb of Storms shock, give exposure, and lower the resist by something like 60. And then our curse can lower it by another 40. And even some of the bosses have like 50 lightning res. It would put them at negative 50, which means they're taking 50% more damage, but it's additive with the shock. But still, that's a huge damage boost, and it's making sure we're doing full damage. Check the link in the description for the full playlist. You can look through all the little series because I played this entirely on stream and I answered tons of questions. I'm pretty sure at some point I answered your question. We'll probably now spend this money. So now we're at 7.5 divines and another one here. So 8.5 divines to spend, and we're going to be testing some more things out soon. See you soon.